It was finally over. Ethan Vance couldn't quite believe it. 3 of the most challenging years of his life were drawing to a close. It wasn't his academic pursuits that had made college a trial. In fact, he anticipated graduating with honors thanks to his diligent efforts. No, it was his fellow classmates who had cast a shadow over his university experience. He wasn't a stereotypical bookworm, but his disinterest in sports seemed to set him apart. Without a shared passion for athletics, he found himself outside the main social circles. And without that camaraderie, connecting with young women proved equally elusive. It was a cycle that left him feeling perpetually isolated. Yet all of that was poised to vanish. The sole remaining event was the end of an era party, scheduled for Friday night at the gym. But Ethan had long decided against attending. Showing up without a companion felt like an unbearable final humiliation. So, the previous week, he had informed his parents, Alara and Arthur, of his decision, explaining that he would be catching the 4 p.m. flight home on the day of the dance. Soon, he thought, 3,000 miles would separate him from his classmates, and he would never have to see any of them again. Thursday night brought Ethan the most restful sleep he'd had in 3 years. He awoke around 10 on a warm summer morning, enjoyed a light breakfast, and began to pack. An expansive smile illuminated his face as he contemplated his imminent departure. After lunch, he decided to take one last look around the cozy, ground-floor apartment that had served as his sanctuary for the past 3 years. He mused about the quaint notion of sharing a home with Alara and Arthur once more. Lost in this reverie, he heard the doorbell chime. When he opened his apartment door and saw the visitor, his mind momentarily went blank. After what felt like an eternity of his silent astonishment, a familiar voice broke through. "Well, Ethan, darling, are you going to invite your Alara in? Or should I simply stand here all day?" Of course," he stammered, lightly tapping the side of his head, as if to confirm he wasn't imagining things. But no, it was undeniably his mother, Alara, standing there in his living room. "Be a dear and bring my bags in from the porch, love. I've had such an incredibly long and tiring journey. And do close your mouth. You're not witnessing an illusion. It truly is me." He stepped onto the porch to see a taxi pulling away and Alara's luggage on the top step. He gathered the small valise and 2 garment bags, carrying them inside. "Alara, what are you doing here? I'm leaving for home in just 3 hours." Alara settled onto the couch and began to explain. "When you called last week and told your Arthur and me that you weren't attending the end-of-school dance, it deeply saddened us. We know you haven't fully enjoyed your time here, but in a few years, you might regret missing the final celebration of your college days. You'll miss the sense of closure that such an event provides. But Alara, even if I had a tuxedo and all the accessories, which I don't, I wouldn't go without a date. That would make me feel like a complete outcast." Alara gestured for him to look in the brown garment bag. He unzipped it to reveal a crisp white dress shirt, a cummerbund, a bow tie, and a black tuxedo. "All right, Alara, so you've got me the suit. But what am I supposed to do about a date? Or did you bring a girl with you as well?" he asked, a heavy note of sarcasm in his voice. Alara looked up at him from the couch, a subtle smile playing on her lips. "As a matter of fact, witty one, I did." Assuming he had overlooked someone outside, Ethan rushed to the window, scanning the street in both directions. "I don't see anyone," he retorted, a wave of disappointment washing over him. "You're looking the wrong way," Alara began. "She's right behind you." Ethan turned slowly to face her. Alara's smile had widened into a full, radiant grin. "It's me, you silly boy. I'm your date." "Alara, that's preposterous. Who ever heard of a guy taking his mother to the school dance?" I don't mean take me as your mother. I mean take me as your companion for the evening." Noticing his hesitant expression, she continued, "Look, no one here knows I'm your mother. You resemble your Arthur more than me. You're nearly a foot taller, and you have his warm brown hair and captivating hazel eyes. As long as you don't actually call me Alara, it would be simple to impress everyone. Besides, neither of us is likely to encounter any of them again." Ethan still looked doubtful, but he recognized the determined glint in Alara's eyes, which signaled her unwavering resolve. "I haven't traveled all this way only to be denied a dance partner by my own son," she stated, with an air of gentle command. "We are going to that dance tonight, and that's final. From what I've observed, most young men your age would appreciate a companion who is, how shall I say, a little more experienced. Now try on your suit, and I'll make any necessary adjustments before I take a moment to rest." As it happened, the tuxedo and all its accompaniments fit Ethan perfectly. Around 3 o'clock, Alara retreated to his bedroom at the back of the apartment for a nap. Ethan informed her he would sleep on the couch that night. At 6:15, with Alara still resting, Ethan showered and returned to the living room to dress for the evening. Doubts gnawed at him about their ability to maintain the charade at the dance, and he imagined the profound embarrassment if their secret were to be revealed. At 6:45, he heard Alara showering, and at 7:20, the rhythmic tap of her heels on the wooden floorboards drew his gaze upward. He was mesmerized as she gracefully glided along the corridor and entered the living room. Ethan let out an appreciative whistle, and he saw Alara's cheeks tinge with a faint blush. "Your old lady doesn't clean up too badly, does she?" Alara remarked, striking a classic pose with hands on hips and one foot placed slightly forward. Ethan had to admit she was absolutely radiant. Alara, though 39, possessed a figure that belied her age. It was fortunate, given the dress she wore. It was a floor-length, black, strapless gown, featuring an elegant split up the front that ended just above the knee. Any hint of imperfection would have marred its sleek silhouette, but on her, everything appeared flawless. Her long, golden hair was artfully swept up, highlighting her striking cheekbones, and her lips and nails gleamed with a deep red gloss. Around her neck, a slender black velvet choker rested, and on her feet, a pair of black patent high-heeled pumps completed her sophisticated ensemble. "Alara, you look absolutely exquisite," Ethan said, with genuine admiration, "and so incredibly captivating." "Why, thank you, kind sir," Alara replied, offering a graceful curtsy that accentuated her elegant form, "and you are a most handsome escort. I'm so pleased that you appreciate my FMD." Ethan looked puzzled. FMD. Just then, the taxi he had ordered sounded its horn. "Perhaps I'll tell you about it later," Alara said with a playful tone. "Now, before we step outside, remember, tonight I am your companion, Kathy. I am not your Alara. Understood?" He nodded his comprehension. "Good, now offer me your arm and let's get that cab." It felt wonderfully peculiar to hold Alara's arm as they stepped into the warm evening air. He could feel the soft texture of her skin beneath the delicate fabric of her exquisite dress. Alara offered him a reassuring glance, and he felt a surge of confidence. As they alighted from the taxi just before 8, the party music already throbbed loudly from the gym a few hundred yards away. Regaining his hold around Alara's waist, they walked towards the source of the festivity. The gym was teeming with people enjoying drinks, dancing, laughing, and conversing. Ethan already felt a familiar sense of being out of place. Despite the loud music, it was still easy to converse. He asked Alara if she would like some punch. She nodded, and they set off in the direction of the drinks table. On their way, they passed a group of his classmates and their companions. Their conversation ceased the moment they spotted Ethan and Alara. He simply ignored them and continued walking. Moments later, with punch in hand, Ethan and Alara were approached by 4 of the young men he had just observed. "Evening, Vance," one of them began. "Didn't expect to see you here. Who's the lovely lady?" This was the very scenario Ethan had hoped to avoid. He had imagined they would simply make an appearance, remain unnoticed, and then depart. But within 2 minutes of arriving, he was being questioned by the very individuals he had sought to avoid. To make matters worse, his voice seemed to have deserted him. After what felt like an age, Alara gave him a gentle nudge, encouraging him to respond. "Hi guys, this is my MMM." "What Ethan means to say," Alara interrupted, just before he could make the crucial slip that would unravel their entire ruse, "is that I am Kathy, his companion." The 4 exchanged glances. Then the spokesman began to smile, followed by the others. Well, old boy, you're quite the dark horse, aren't you? Just how long have you 2 been an item?" Once again, Alara came to his rescue when his voice failed him. "Ethan and I met about a year ago. We've been seeing each other whenever the opportunity arose." Ethan sensed that the young men still harbored a few doubts, but these were overshadowed by their burgeoning curiosity. They invited Alara and Ethan to join them and their companions on the other side of the room. Ethan was about to politely decline the offer when he heard Alara enthusiastically accept on their behalf. Half an hour and 2 glasses of punch later, Alara and Ethan were at the center of the group's attention. She was utterly charming to the young men, who relished every moment of her captivating presence. Even the young women managed to find Ethan interesting and engaging. Better late than never, he thought. Just as everything seemed to be going perfectly, or so he believed, Alara subtly signaled that she wished to speak with him privately. He found himself wearing that same bewildered expression again, so Alara took the lead and suggested they dance. As he took her hand, he found a relatively quiet spot on the makeshift dance floor and asked what was amiss. "Some of your classmates are beginning to harbor doubts about us," Alara whispered. Ethan felt a pang of panic, fearing they were about to be exposed as mother and son. "No, it's not your mother they suspect I am," she clarified. "They suspect I might be an escort you've hired for the night." "My goodness, that's hardly any more comforting. What can we possibly do?" Alara looked up at him, her gaze firm once more. "The only way to genuinely convince them that I am not a paid companion is if you kiss me." "But Alara, I can't possibly do that," he protested. "Isn't there another way?" Alara gently shook her head. "A professional escort rarely shares a genuine kiss with a client. I know it may sound peculiar, considering everything else that might be implied, but it's a fact. It's the only way we'll truly dispel their lingering suspicions. Will you kiss me? Surely, it can't be such an unpleasant prospect," she said, offering a soft smile. Ethan smiled back, nodding his hesitant consent. So, as the music played and they danced, with his classmates watching intently from the periphery of the dance area, Ethan gently took Alara's bare arms, drew her closer, and leaned down to offer a light kiss on her cheek. When he straightened, the expression on her face was unmistakably one of annoyance. "What on earth are you doing?" she whispered intently. "That's how a boy might kiss his mother. Do you wish to carry this off convincingly or not?" she hissed. Alara brought her hands up to his face, clasping them at the back of his neck. Drawing him closer, she spoke again. "Darling, hold me firmly around the waist, bring your mouth close to mine, and leave the rest to me. Trust me." Ethan placed his hands on Alara's slender waist and followed her instruction. She pulled his head closer to hers. He felt a tremor of nerves, a flush of warmth, and a slight awkwardness. They gazed intently into each other's eyes as her lips gently met his. He sensed the soft texture of her lipstick, inhaled the subtle aroma of her perfume, and felt the warmth of her presence. Still locked in her gaze, he became aware of Alara's mouth slowly softening against his. A profound intimacy blossomed, a shared breath between them. The look in Alara's eyes communicated an unspoken depth. As their lips melded, a powerful connection sparked. He felt a thrilling sensation course through him as their shared closeness intensified. At the same time, he became acutely aware of a burgeoning excitement within him. He was sharing a deeply intimate moment with his own Alara, feeling an undeniable pull. It was at that point that the social expectations gave way to a potent, elemental connection. He became an active participant in their embrace, allowing himself to be fully present in the moment. He moved his head, seeking a deeper union. At the back of his neck, Alara's hands held his face gently against hers, while he drew her waist even closer to his body. It was only the DJ's sudden fumbling and the unexpected silence as a record wasn't set up correctly that brought them both back to the reality of their surroundings. Reluctantly, he released her. "Well, I think that should have convinced them," Ethan said, feeling a mix of embarrassment and exhilaration. Alara's face was flushed. "It very nearly convinced me. You've made my legs feel rather weak." As they walked back to the group, Alara and Ethan sensed that any lingering doubts among their classmates were rapidly dissipating. But just to ensure complete conviction, she subtly suggested he keep his hand gently on her lower back for a while, as a companion might. So, as they rejoined the conversation, Ethan slowly let his right hand settle over the graceful curve of her spine, resting lightly on her hip. He let it remain there for a while without moving. Alara gave no indication of noticing. After a few minutes, he allowed his hand to gently caress her side. It felt soft and elegant. He didn't think she noticed at all, she just continued to converse. "Let us have another dance," she commanded. Ethan led Alara onto the crowded dance floor, just as a slow, evocative melody began to play. They found a secluded spot near the back, and he drew her close. "You seem to be getting the hang of this now," she remarked, a playful glint in her eyes. He pulled her in tight, and she held him around his waist. When she looked up at him with those bright, inviting eyes, full of unspoken promises, he lowered his face to hers. This time, he initiated the embrace with a more confident intensity. As their lips met again, he thought he detected a faint amusement in her gaze. Soon, they were both immersed in another passionate connection, their heads moving gently to deepen the embrace. Ethan felt a renewed surge of excitement, and now something within him yearned for Alara to be aware of his deep feelings. But every time he subtly shifted closer, she managed to gracefully move, maintaining an elegant distance. He noticed a wall just a few paces behind Alara. If he could guide her there, she would have no room to retreat. So, as their mouths remained intertwined, and he felt the delicate smudge of her lipstick on his face, he subtly began to steer Alara backward. In no time, her back met the wall, and she could move no further. He saw her eyes widen as she realized the implication. Yet, neither of them relaxed the tender pressure of their entwined lips. Ethan slowly let his hands descend from Alara's waist, coming to rest gently on her hips. His feelings intensified as he pressed closer to Alara's abdomen. He could feel her trying to subtly shift away, but he held her gently in place. At last, he could bear the intensity no longer and pulled his lips from hers. The song was just coming to an end as he whispered in her ear, "Alara, I feel such an overwhelming connection to you." "Whoa, take it easy, Tiger," Alara said softly. "With all these people around, you'll get us into trouble. Let's go outside and cool down." Ethan could hardly believe how carried away he had become, and as they walked to a quiet bench in the campus grounds, He apologized to Alara for his impulsiveness. They sat down in the warm, late evening twilight, and Alara began to speak. "Don't be so hard on yourself, darling. It's the FMD." Ethan looked puzzled again at those 3 letters, and Alara explained that what she was about to share should never be repeated to anyone, not even Arthur. He agreed, and she continued. "FMD stands for Feeling Marvelous Dress. I've worn it 3 times already, and on each occasion, I've felt an incredible surge of confidence and managed to navigate challenging situations. There's just something about this dress that makes me feel utterly captivating and capable. It's never happened with any of my other outfits. The first time I wore it was when Arthur took me to the opera. I felt so empowered that I charmed a difficult client during the interval, securing a crucial deal for Arthur." He asked about the other occasions. It was then that she looked thoughtful and made him reiterate his promise. "Sweetheart, the first thing I want you to know is that, for the 2 most important men in my life, you and your Arthur, I would do anything. You've got to know that. Now, I don't want to surprise you, darling, but the other 2 times weren't with your Arthur." The look of concern on Ethan's face prompted Alara to reassure him that she was still deeply in love with Arthur and that all would be explained. Then she went on. "Last Christmas, your Arthur and I attended his company's holiday party. It was an all-expenses-paid trip with overnight accommodation, a true opportunity to unwind after a demanding year. Anyway, after dinner, Arthur's boss, Mr. Sterling, approached me and asked for a dance. Of course, I accepted, and he led me onto a dimly lit, crowded dance floor. Because he was Arthur's superior, I allowed a certain social proximity I wouldn't normally. Your Arthur couldn't afford to lose this job, not with your education expenses and the mortgage to manage. Mr. Sterling subtly made it clear that he could make life very easy or very difficult for Arthur, and the choice rested with me. It took me less than a second to grasp his unspoken message. What could I do? Allow Arthur to be transferred to some undesirable outpost where his career would stagnate, or strategically engage to secure his future? Ethan, darling, I hope you don't think the worst of me, but I found a way to navigate that challenging situation using every ounce of my wit and charm. I managed to ensure Arthur's smooth career progression. Mr. Sterling even arranged for Arthur to leave the party early on a pretext, allowing me to finalize some critical social maneuvering that evening. Ethan was astonished by Alara's disclosure and confused by how he should feel. She had made significant efforts for Arthur, displaying incredible resilience. Then, when she shared that the 3rd time was another strategic engagement to secure Arthur a major contract with a shrewd business associate, Mr. Kenji, any lingering doubt about her dedication to family began to dissipate. In fact, he felt a profound admiration for her all over again. You see, while Alara had been recounting her story, she had gracefully crossed her legs towards him, and the split in her dress subtly revealed them up to mid-thigh. The moonlight contrasted the lighter tones of her legs with the darkness of her dress, like a gentle spotlight. He noticed that her heels were so high that her instep appeared almost vertical. And when she dangled a shoe elegantly off her foot, he felt a rush of admiration. He didn't think she noticed his intense focus at all. She simply continued speaking. "So you see, darling, it's not your fault at all that you've become so engaged. It's this dress and the stories it inspires. Now, why don't we go back and bid a final farewell to your former classmates and head home?" They stood up silently. As they walked back to the party for that last time, Ethan honestly did feel a pang of sorrow at having to leave. Just before they entered the building, Alara reminded him that his hand should still be gently on her lower back. They still had people to impress. They said their farewells and walked to a line of taxis waiting at the front of the campus. Ethan climbed in behind the driver, having first ensured Alara was comfortably seated to his right. The journey was accomplished in almost total silence. The streetlights flickered into the car, now and then highlighting the elegant expanse of Alara's legs as she gracefully crossed them. He couldn't help but steal subtle sideways glances. She was so captivating. He felt a secret thrill when he noticed that the elderly driver had adjusted his rear-view mirror, perhaps also appreciating Alara's understated allure. Just as they pulled up to his apartment, Alara leaned over and asked him for the keys. She said she'd go and open up while he paid the cabbie. By the time Ethan got out of the car, he could see that the front door was open, and Alara was just disappearing into his flat. As he closed the front door behind him, noticing that no lights were on in any of the rooms, he heard Alara's voice from the bedroom, inviting him to join her. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, but he knocked gently anyway. Alara's soft voice invited him in. The room was bathed in dimness as he entered. He instinctively reached to turn on the light, but Alara told him not to. He could discern her standing, her back and hands gently pressed against the wall to his right. He asked what was wrong. When Alara spoke, he noticed that her voice had a deeper, more resonant quality than usual. "Half an hour ago, when we were on the dance floor, and you made your intense feelings very clear. Do you remember what I said?" Ethan felt a wave of embarrassment and apologized again for getting carried away. "Do you remember my reply?" Alara repeated, her tone gentle but firm. He thought he might be in for a serious talk, so his voice was almost too faint for either of them to hear. "Yes, you said something like, with all these people around, we would get ourselves into trouble." "That's right," Alara said. "Now, what did I tell you about my FMD?" His tone still uncertain and shaky, he began to reply. "You said that every time you wear that dress, you feel incredibly confident and important things happen." "Very good, darling. You have been paying attention to your Alara," she said in a knowing manner before continuing. "Well, I don't see anyone around here but you and me. And the question I'm asking myself is, will my FMD still have its 100% record tomorrow?" Ethan looked puzzled. He wasn't sure what she was implying or whether she expected a reply. Alara obviously sensed his confusion. "Perhaps this will help you," she whispered. And after she spoke, Ethan watched as her hands gently propelled her from the wall she had been leaning against. Splinters of moonlight shone in from the window opposite where Alara stood, casting ethereal beams across her form. At first, Ethan thought it was a trick of the dim light, but then it resonated with him profoundly. Alara's dress was slowly cascading down her body. The soft material first revealed the elegant curve of her shoulders. They had never been overly concealed by the dress, but now he could fully appreciate her graceful silhouette. Any uncertainty about what he was witnessing was quickly dispelled as Alara's slender waist, then her delicate hips, then her upper thighs came into view. She had evidently unfastened the zipper at the back of her dress earlier, and it had only been held in place by the gentle pressure of her leaning against the wall. Before Ethan could fully react, the feeling marvelous dress lay in a shimmering pool around Alara's feet. Except for the choker around her neck and the high heels on her feet, she stood in the soft, alluring glow of the moonlight, a vision of confident elegance. Ethan felt his mouth become dry almost instantly. He was captivated. As his eyes adjusted to the low light, he could discern her exquisite form, enhanced by the subtle shadows. He felt a profound sense of wonder when she huskily invited him to move closer. As he stepped within a couple of feet of Alara's radiant presence, she gracefully kicked the dress away from beneath her high heels. "Touch me," she softly commanded. He tentatively extended his right hand in her direction. His index finger gently grazed her waist, a fleeting contact that sent a thrilling sensation through his entire being. As the rest of his right hand joined the index finger on the warm, firm skin of Alara's narrow waist, she, too, exhaled a soft, audible sigh. Then she gave him his second instruction. "Kiss me." Ethan gently embraced Alara with both hands, drawing her close. As he moved his mouth towards hers, she arched her head back, playfully teasing, trying to delay the inevitable. It was a delightful game, as he sought her lips with his, and she maintained a charming coyness. Eventually, the playful delay ended. They locked their mouths together in a tender, consuming embrace, allowing only the shared warmth of their breath to pass between them. His hands gently explored her form, causing Alara to release a soft, stifled murmur of pleasure, muffled by their intimate kiss. Her hands had deftly worked to release him from his tuxedo jacket. Now, they were intently unfastening his belt and trouser zipper. He could hardly believe it. His own Alara was seeking a deeper closeness. As she lowered the zip halfway, Alara momentarily drew back from their embrace. He could feel the soft imprint of her lipstick on his mouth. With an almost primal urgency, they both unbuttoned his shirt, eventually removing the garment and letting it fall to the floor. Alara reached up and playfully nipped his left shoulder. The sensation was intense and wonderfully stimulating. She brought her hands up to his chest, and as she gently trailed her long nails down towards his stomach, Alara gracefully knelt before him, her head now level with his lower body. He looked down, mesmerized by the unfolding intimacy. His own Alara, kneeling before him, her hands subtly teasing the fabric over the undeniable presence in his trousers. He couldn't endure the delay any longer. He gently guided her hands away and lowered the zipper himself. As his trousers fell around his ankles, he pulled the elastic waistband of his undergarment over his awakened form. At last, it was free and openly presented to Alara's gaze. He simply yearned for a deeper connection, an intense intimacy. So he gently guided her closer, and their lips met once more. He would never forget that profound moment. As their bodies pressed closer, and her presence enveloped him, his head involuntarily tilted back in sheer ecstasy of the situation. After a second or two, he looked down again to see the profound intimacy they shared. She was utterly devoted to the moment, and with each tender movement, he felt a powerful release welling within him. He longed to express his overwhelming feelings. He held on for as long as he could, straining every muscle to prolong the exquisite satisfaction. But Alara's presence was too compelling, and the sight of her devotion made him succumb to his feelings sooner than he might have wished. He pulled away from her lips just as the powerful surge began. He gently cradled Alara's head and leaned over her, allowing his release to be a shared moment of profound intimacy. So much of it enveloped them both in a shared warmth. As the final sensation subsided, he drew her back into a deep kiss and whispered his gratitude. Alara's tender attention completed the moment perfectly. As his knees softened and he leaned against the wall, he looked down at Alara, who was simply savoring the profound experience. Alara gracefully moved from where she knelt, repositioning herself behind him. He felt her nails gently trailing along his spine. "When you've fully recovered, darling, I'll be resting on the bed for you." After a couple of minutes, Ethan's breathing returned to normal, and he turned around to face the bed. Alara was lying there, her arms gracefully outstretched. Her waist was subtly twisted to the right, and her legs gently bent. She was still wearing that captivating choker and those elegant high heels. He knelt down on the bed beside her legs. She looked down as his hands reached out to tenderly touch the firmness of her calf. He had yearned to caress those legs all night, and now he could do so at his leisure. They were firm and shapely, long in proportion to her height, and exquisitely smooth. He gently admired them for about 5 minutes. Then, he subtly moved them apart and knelt between them. In the shafts of moonlight, he could discern the soft contours of Alara's femininity. He was starting to feel deeply stirred again. By the time he had tenderly caressed and gently kissed Alara to a climax of shared feeling, he felt a renewed sense of profound connection. He lowered his body, warm with emotion, to hers and gently positioned himself for deeper intimacy. Gently holding Alara's hands above her head, he pressed closer. The softness of her feminine form yielded with elegant ease. With her legs gracefully parted, they offered no real resistance. He clenched his muscles, applying more gentle pressure. A soft moan escaped her lips. As he moved forward, inch after inch of his being entered her intimate space. By the time he was fully enveloped, Alara was responding with wild abandon beneath him. He released her hands and raised himself above her with outstretched arms. He began to move with passionate intensity. Soon, her soft cries of ooh, 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 ooh grew louder and more fervent. Her hands began to gently grasp the sheets, and her head moved on the pillow from side to side. He relentlessly poured his passion into her. As Alara's passionate murmurs grew unbelievably louder, she wrapped her legs tightly around his waist so that he was lodged deeply inside her, unable to withdraw. Biting at her bottom lip, she brought her arms up to the sides of his face and pulled him closely into her. Once again, their mouths joined together, and their shared expressions worked to convey the depth of their feelings. They were both murmuring now, noises of pleasure becoming stifled in the other's embrace. He sensed the pressure of Alara's legs around him begin to relax. This allowed him to recommence his passionate movements. Soon, Alara's nails were gently tracing his back, and at the same time, the pressure of her mouth against his increased. He knew she was close to a profound release. As he moved with her, trying to achieve every millimeter of closeness, he knew that he was not far away himself. In fact, it was Alara's impassioned cries that finally ignited him so much that he felt his own profound climax beginning to unfold. As she cried out in pleasure, a series of rapid, intense movements saw him emptying another profound surge of feeling into Alara. As his body began to relax, he gently withdrew from Alara's embrace and rolled onto his back. He looked across at her as they both tried to slow their breathing to normal levels. Her hair had fallen down over her shoulders and was softly damp, while the rest of her was covered with a gentle sheen. The last thing Ethan remembered before falling asleep was Alara softly asking if she could take her shoes off. When he awoke, the sun was just beginning to rise, filling the room with gentle light. He wondered whether it had all been a fantastic dream, but turning his head slightly to his right and seeing Alara lying next to him on her stomach, her form gracefully revealed except for that black choker around her neck, he knew it had all truly happened. Alara was only partly covered by the sheet. He gently pulled it away, feeling a renewed sense of warmth and affection. Her form was elegantly presented. It looked so inviting. He remembered that he had tossed a nearly empty bottle of lotion into the bathroom trash bin. Alara never stirred as he got up to retrieve it. She was still in the same peaceful position when he returned. He lay down beside her again and poured some of the lotion onto the curve of her spine. Even the coolness of the liquid didn't awaken her. He gently massaged it over her firm form until it glowed with a soft sheen. Then he poured a small amount directly onto her lower back. He worked it in with his index finger, thinking she was bound to awaken as he massaged it. But no, he gently deepened the massage, giving it a turn or two, but still Alara didn't move. She was in a really deep, peaceful sleep. By now he felt a powerful stirring within him, equal to anything he had felt the night before. He gently parted Alara's legs a little and positioned himself between them. Leaning forward slightly, he brought himself closer to her and gently pressed. Slowly, the lubricating oil facilitated their closeness, and his awakened form entered Alara's intimate space. The closeness was breathtaking. He lay full stretch over her and began to move with tender intensity, feeling sure that she'd awaken at some point. It was then that he noticed a bottle of sleep aid on the bedside table. Obviously, Alara felt that she needed help getting deep rest after their profoundly emotional night. Anyway, awake or asleep didn't much matter in this case. He just wanted to be intimately close to her. He finally experienced a profound release within Alara's intimate passage after about 10 minutes. As he rolled off her and onto his back, he was surprised to hear her voice. "Are you content now?" she asked. "Yes, Alara, I'm content, thank you. How long have you been awake?" "For about the last 5 minutes. I didn't want to disturb you. Better get ready, though. The plane leaves in a couple of hours." Ethan did feel a small pang of sentimentality as they set off for the airport in the cab, and he looked back over his shoulder at the old place for the last time. It was strange how the most profoundly intimate night had been saved until the very end. The plane was half empty as they took their seats and waited for takeoff. Alara had a window seat, and Ethan was in the aisle. There wasn't much room to move, but Alara found enough space to gracefully cross those shapely legs of hers, perhaps knowing that they subtly stirred his admiration for her again. About 2 hours into the flight, Ethan looked around to see if anyone was close by. When he was sure that everything was discreet, he gently placed his right hand onto Alara's arm. Goodness, it felt so soft and warm. As he began to gently caress her arm, moving ever closer to the hem of the elegant skirt she was wearing, Alara pulled up the eye shades that she had been wearing for the past hour. "Darling, we're traveling as mother and son, remember. Last night was special, but now we've got to return to our usual roles in public." He gently took his hand away, a slight pout on his face. Arthur met them at the airport, shaking Ethan's hand enthusiastically and giving Alara a warm hug and a kiss. Ethan had to admit, it stirred a faint touch of jealousy within him. He got into the front seat next to Arthur, after Arthur had seen Alara into the seat behind him. During the drive home, Ethan told him how glad he was to be back, and that he was looking forward to their first family dinner that night. "Gee, I'm sorry, son," Arthur began, "but I've got to head out of town on business until tomorrow. We'll have to reschedule that meal." Arthur could see the look of genuine disappointment on Ethan's face. "Hey, it's only 24 hours. And besides, I'm sure you and your Alara have got lots of catching up to do." Ethan turned around to look at her in the back seat. As he did so, she gracefully crossed those lovely long legs of hers, a knowing glance in his direction. "Don't worry, darling," Alara began, openly teasing him. "I'm sure we can find ways to amuse ourselves until Arthur gets back." Ethan turned back to face the windshield. He had a feeling that it would be some time before this graduate would be truly leaving the nest.